Hi, I'm Beck, and I'm a psychologist. And the reason that I was drawn to this career in the first place was my genuine compassion for humanity in general. Because of my own struggles, I get it. I get all of it. I understand how people get themselves in all sorts of situations, and and I have a lot of compassion for wherever they are. And what I'm seeing now and globally is so much unsafety, in a nervous system individually, that we are so dysregulated that it's actually unconditional love. And what is needed right now globally to get ourselves out of this mess, we're not nervous system calibrated enough to deliver that. And I want to just give you an example that you'll really relate to, in that I see this all the time, and I understand it deeply. Parenting, and the concept that we have our children that theoretically that we do anything for, and theoretically we love unconditionally. However, how many times, and this is no judgment, but honestly, reflect on how many times you put your best interests above their best interests, just with basic things like perhaps knowing a particular food, particular activity is detrimental to their neurology or their gut health, but you just need a break, or you just, I get it. I deeply understand it. However, I can't help reflect on how our own dysregulated nervous system as a parent then deeply shapes our choices. Because in that moment, I'm not feeling safe. I'm not feeling able to regulate myself. So therefore, it probably is in the child's best interest to give them the screen or whatever, because I need a minute to regulate. But you can see how that pattern then is setting up what is perhaps in the long run not the child's best interest, but in that moment has to be the parent's best interest, because they're just not regulated. So if we take unconditional love and we really understand it as a concept of being able to put someone else's best interests before your own, not to self-sacrifice, that's different, but because you're so safe, in your regulation and your deep knowing that you can caretake you can regulate you can deal with whatever consequences might come. They're not going to ruffle you, they're not going to wobble you. You're not scared of whatever it is you're being asked to respond to. And you trust yourself enough to follow the guidance of what that person's best interest is. Because do you know, a lot of the time, someone's best interests will be counterintuitive to what it might look like from an outward observer. Perhaps the best interests of what might be judged to be the best interest of someone, you might look like being very kind and you need to be very compassionate and validating. However, that's not in their best interest. Their best interest is actually for you to hold a boundary really strongly and really firmly and not budge, because that person needs to learn to respect boundaries, and it doesn't serve them to learn to manipulate and to learn to push boundaries. It doesn't serve them in the long run. It's not their best interest. So you've got to have a deep sense of self-trust when holding someone else's best interest, because you've got to be able to discern what is actually their best interest in any given moment. Now, if we look at globally, if we're moving towards unconditional love or unity consciousness, or just a bit of a more connected state, realistically, how able are you to be able to put anyone's best interest into your consideration, so you can respond to a situation not just from your own self-interest? To be honest, most of us are too scared. Most of us have not developed a sense of safety and a sense of deep self-trust to be able to do that. So I would say that the turning point for humanity, it's again and again is going to come back to nervous system regulation, because if you've got a regulated nervous system and a deep sense of self-trust and safety, you're going to show up to a crisis point, to a moment of community difficulty, to a parenting moment. You're going to show up to that very differently than if you are feeling reactive and like you can't meet your needs and you can't keep yourself safe at any given moment because you feel overwhelmed by how much is being asked of you with your job, with your commitments and appointments and everything that life demands. So let's just take a second to realistically look at your nervous system. And I know a lot of people interested in this sort of spiritual psyche content have a view of themselves that is very loving and, you know, we're very compassionate. Great, I don't doubt that. But I will take somebody on my team. If I'm picking teams, I'll pick the regulated nervous system. I will trust the person with the regulated nervous system over the loving, this one that's spouting love and light. Give me the regulated nervous system any day. I can trust that person to take my best interests into their heart. They're not scared. They can do that. Won't wobble them. Find that person. Be that person.